from the district that I'm located in, which is District 5960, which is up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'm speaking to you from Stillwater, Minnesota, by the way, on the beautiful St. Croix River. But I work with two past district governors on the Operation Pollination project. One of the past district governors I work with, Judy Freund, she's actually the co-chair of SRAG's Pollinator Committee. There's a couple of things we need to just put in context for this program to make a lot of sense. And that is 85%, first off, is 85% of the world's plants rely upon pollinators to reproduce, more than 85%. The second thing is, over the past 50 years, 45% of the world's pollinators have disappeared. I'm talking about 45% of the population, not 45% of the species. There's 45% less pollinators today than there were 50 years ago. You might ask, well, what is the next 50 years going to look like? And that's what this project is all about. It's a project that passes the four-way test. Even your fifth area that you added, that have fun. I love that fifth area of focus you added. So let's get into it. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And so hopefully by the end of our 20 minutes here, you may have some new eyes on how you look at landscapes around El Paso. But with those new eyes, nobody wants to see this. This was a photograph taken at a Whole Foods grocery store, set up by an insect society called the Xerces Society. Want to give them credit for their photo and all that hard work that went into that setup. But does anybody on this call like to eat? That'll be a question I asked. Susanna, you like to eat?
Absolutely.
Jesse, how about you?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, then this program is relevant to you. Now, what is this?
Oh.
Any takers?
Looks like damaged. Are those trees?
Yeah, those are trees. That's an aerial photograph. Sorry, it's a little fuzzy. This is a mountaintop in Mexico, and that damage is actually this. Those are monarch butterflies clinging to those trees. The Monarch Migration, which passes through El Paso, and you are on, I did do the research, Susanna and Jesse, you are on that eastern population that goes down to Mexico. But I'm sure there's some spillover to the western population as well. But the monarchs that you see passing through your neighborhood, they're all heading to these mountaintops in Mexico where they overwinter. This little insect that's never been to this mountaintop before, it's an amazing story. It's one of the world's greatest migrations. It migrates 2,000 to 3,000 miles. It's never been there before. It's never going back there, because when it leaves those mountaintops in the spring and heads up to Texas, where you're located, to lay its eggs on milkweed for them to hatch and then proceed the journey north, by the time they're ready to come back to Mexico, it's the fourth generation. So somehow wired into their DNA is this miracle to migrate to these mountaintops in Mexico. You all know the pollinators, the bees, wasps, flies, beetles, butterflies, moths, even the male mosquito I recently learned is a pollinator. But there's also things like hummingbirds, a couple of bat species like agave needs bats to pollinate them. There's a couple of reptiles and even a couple of rodents that are pollinators. So the project I'm going to talk to you about today is Operation Pollination, but it's had its beginnings back in 2015 with the St. Croix Valley Pollinator Partnership, when a group of federal agencies got together, signed a pollinator resolution, and asked others to join. And that's what you can do too as a club. maybe you get those other Rotary clubs in El Paso and you sign a pollinator resolution between your clubs and then commit to do pollinator habitat restoration or education activities. I used to work in parks. As Susanna said, I've worked at a couple of parks around the country, but now I work for the regional office, and the region that I work with extends from North Dakota to Ohio, down to Arkansas, and back up to North Dakota. I don't have Texas in my region, unfortunately. That's in the Intermountain region, which is west of the Midwest regions. But nonetheless, some of the monarchs that pass through this area are heading your way. Same species, we're connected that way. So in 2018, I asked 3 national heritage areas that are starred here to engage in the pollinator partnership that I just mentioned to you about, that began in the St. Croix Valley back in 2015. These 3 heritage areas, they agreed to participate in the project. And as you'll see at the end of the program today, there's 36 of them that are interested. There's more stars on the map. But now, what can Rotary do? Well, Rotary's done a lot already, I have to tell you, because in August, SRAG, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, embraced Operation Pollination as your own project. It was one of the happiest days of my life, I have to tell you, when SRAG said they'd embrace this project, because as a former Rotarian, I know that you guys are a take charge group and you like to get things done, right? And you don't need to rely upon other people's money to get things done. If you need money for a project, sometimes you can fundraise or do whatever you want and get that project done. And this project, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't cost a lot of money, by the way. So you already have the ingredients there. You have the leadership of Rotary. I know that you're a take charge group. And if you want to get involved, go to the operationpollination.net website. I'm going to explain about this right now, but go to the operationpollination.net website and scroll down on the home page to just 3 easy steps, and you will see what I'm about to tell you. So what can Rotarians do? You can either become an Operation Pollination leader, which I'm sure is very appealing to Rotarians, or you can become an Operation Pollination partner. So to become a leader, you would do the following 3 things, just 3 easy steps. Number 1, you would draft your own pollinator resolution. Number 2, you would draft up a pollinator pledge form and you'd ask organizations in El Paso to sign the pledge form. By the way, the organizations you would ask to sign a pledge form, they would be government or non-government, for-profit or not-for-profit, large or small, everyone. Basically, everyone should be involved in this project for the sake, really, of humanity. This is a project that is for the benefit of our children and our children's children and their children. It's a legacy type project, again, that SRAG supports and encourages you to engage in. In fact, SRAG Central, which extends from Ontario down to Texas, their quest is to engage as many clubs between Ontario and Texas in this project. So you've signed a resolution, you've engaged people with pollinator pledge forms, and now you put their names on the back of your resolution and you obtain widespread media attention. And believe me, you will get media attention for this. So this is what a simple resolution looks like. This can be found, a template can be found on that operationpollination.net website. All you have to do is change the name to the El Paso Club. Of course, read this, update it. If it makes sense to you, if you want to change it any way that makes sense to you, that's fine. Then you would pass out a simple pledge form to your partners. Susanna, please name a business in El Paso that you think might be able to be a pledge partner.
I wonder if the schools would.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, perfect. So you would go to the local school, maybe go to this local school superintendent and say, the Rotary Clubs of El Paso, we're embracing this Operation Pollination project. And to do so, we need organizations to commit to do something positive for the environment. And if you believe in this resolution before you, the one pager that I showed you, this, if you believe in that, could you please sign a pledge form and tell us what the schools would do? The superintendent probably would speak to his or her principals, and maybe they would decide to, are schools in El Paso, are they, do they have the green grass football fields and playing fields like other schools in the East?
No.
No.
No, but we do have landscaping. We don't have the green, but
Yeah.
we certainly have plants and such.
Plants, sure. So you could ask them to plant, whatever plants are appropriate for your environment. That's an outstanding suggestion, by the way. By the way, you being in Phoenix, and my 3 sons live in Arizona, by the way, that music museum you talked about, the instrument museum, if they had grass out or a xeric landscape outside there, you could say, hey, could you enhance this with pollinator-friendly plants? So everybody can be invited, even the local pizza place. If they have a little piece of land that they could plant nectar-bearing plants on or milkweed for monarchs, that would be appropriate. So resolution, pledge form, put the names of the people or of the organizations who sign your resolution and pledge form on the back of your resolution. So this is the back of your resolution. This was the one in the St. Croix Valley in 2015, 70 names on it. It now has 125 names on it. And as you can see, lots of different groups. By the way, I've done this now for a couple of years. I've only had one group tell me no. So that's not bad. One group in 6 years. You know why they told me no? Religious freedom. Don't ask me. But they said no because of religious freedom. 3 easy steps. Issue your resolution. 2, ask clubs or other organizations to sign a pledge form. 3, put their names on the back of your resolution and get media attention. Now, if you had a national heritage area near you, you could also ask to be part of their project, but you don't, so I'm going to skip this one and just remind you that this is an SRAG project. By the way, Susanna contacted me because she saw this magazine that I'm holding up before you. You all get the Rotarian. And the October issue of the Rotarian magazine, I encourage you to go retrieve it if you still have it and read the butterfly effect article in the Rotarian magazine. That tells you about this project that I've just told you about today. But SRAG embraces this project. SRAG asks you to join. But also don't underestimate what you can do. I don't have a picture of the landscape around El Paso. I'm sorry about that. But this top photo, this is Chicago. The bottom photo, that's Bismarck, North Dakota. And those are just individuals' homes where they've done landscaping to enhance their landscape for pollinators. If you can do the same in El Paso around your homes, even if you live in an apartment, you could put out a plant with pollinator-friendly plants in it. This is a community garden that I saw out on Long Island in New York. I know you don't have that type of green in El Paso, but that's what they did. They planted some milkweed in the middle of their community to attract monarchs. Monarchs, by the way, require milkweed to reproduce. They will only lay their eggs on milkweed. And you should make sure if you plant milkweed, it's native milkweed. They could really use that boost, by the way, there at El Paso. That is one of the last stops, of course, before they go onward to their mountaintops in Mexico to spend the winter. Also, when they return from those mountaintops in the spring, El Paso and Texas is one of their first stops on the way back. So you could really help them. So as I mentioned, the National Heritage Area landscape is 55 large areas around the United States. And today, instead of 3 areas being interested in doing Operation Pollination, these are the number of heritage areas interested. And those in brown, those are the ones that already have something on their website. So in wrapping up our brief presentation today, I just wanted to say, this does not have to be the last time that we speak, Susanna and Jesse and all the others on the call. I'm here to help you if you need some assistance. I don't have money or anything to give you, for habitat restoration projects, but I am here to back you up and to provide you advice and guidance if you need it. There's plenty of websites that you can go to, by the way, that talk about projects you can do for pollinators. And if you go to that magazine that I showed you, I'm going to turn to page 50 in that magazine. There's a list of organizations here on the sidebar of that magazine that you can go to, including pollinator.org, where you can type in your zip code and it'll tell you what plants are appropriate for El Paso, which would be kind of cool. So in closing, I just want to thank Rotary for the invitation you've given me today and your attention to my presentation. Remember, I know you all like to eat. You told me this. This is the end goal. Pollinators equals food security equals national security. This is a national security issue, especially with the fact that pollinators are in steep decline, not only in the United States, by the way, but worldwide. What would we do without these little things that run the world? I have no idea. So please, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. And that beautiful quote is very meaningful to me because it's allowed me to look at the landscape where I live with these new eyes in ways that I did not look at it before. And now when I drive around and look at a landscape, I look at it, well, what can we do to help enhance that landscape for pollinators? And I would ask you to please think about that as well when you drive around the El Paso area. So, Susanna, I'm very interested if you and your club get involved in a pollinator project, or if you engage the other Rotary groups in El Paso in this 7th area of focus project. It's really easy. It's so simple, quite frankly, it can be difficult. But go to the operationpollination.net website and it will go over the 3 easy steps that I mentioned to you during this presentation. And I now would like to open it up to any questions that your group might have. It's really been my pleasure to speak to you. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer those questions. And Susanna, if you can share this presentation with your club members, that would be great.
Okay, I will. Jesse records every one of our.
Oh, great.
So that'll be good.
Great.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Chris?
I've got a question.
Yes, Jesse.
You talked about projects to plant plants, but it seems like there could be several topics here. One is several reasons why the pollinators are reducing in population. It could be plants, fewer plants. It could be pollution, contaminants. It could be change in agricultural practices.
Yes.
Do you have any comments on the different impact of all of those?
Everything you said is absolutely true. So the 3 top reasons why, well, there's 4 top reasons. Number 1 top reason is loss of habitat. As I mentioned, monarchs, if we're going to talk about this iconic species, they need milkweed. If there is no milkweed, they have no place to lay their eggs. They will not lay their eggs on another plant. They are very host specific, and most pollinators are host specific. So that's why it's important to plant native plants if you want your native pollinators. So loss of habitat, climate change, pesticide use, and parasites. Those are the 4 top reasons why pollinators are decreasing. Good question, Jesse. Hey, Lyndon, I've been meaning to ask you, are you really on like some beach?
No, that's just a thing that comes with Zoom. But I
Oh, I
want to
see.
assure you, there are green areas in El
Yeah.
Paso.
Well, I knew
and
that
in
wasn't,
Upper
I
and
knew that,
Lower Valley
I
that were
thought-
That's true.
agricultural like mad.
I thought maybe you've gone down to the Caribbean or out to
Yeah,
Hawaii
It
for,
just makes me feel good when we do
yeah,
kind
it
of
makes,
meet.
it's making me feel good too. It's reminding me of quote unquote home in American Samoa.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes.
There are in that article, it talked about a corridor, and there were several Rotary clubs that had joined together to plant the milkweed along that corridor. Now, if a corridor, let's say that the butterflies have a specific corridor that they're traveling down to get down to Mexico, if that gets disturbed, could another corridor be created, or how does that work?
Well, first off, Susanna, that's a great question. And we need to define what a corridor is. So the article talks about, I think, the I-35 corridor. Is that correct?
I don't remember what it was. I just,
Yeah, a lot of people have called Interstate 35 the Monarch Highway. Well, the Monarchs don't go down the highway, obviously. It's just that that's the corridor, but the corridor is hundreds of miles on either side. So the corridor is a very large corridor. So yes, if within that large corridor, there was a narrow corridor that was affected, they would just switch to the other area. So yes.
I have a question. When you're working with a partner, do you provide them a list of appropriate plants, or how do you engage your partner beyond just the sign up?
That's totally up to you. And and I would, if you were to, for example, engage in Operation Pollination and sign a resolution, either your own club alone or with another club, or your district, you would create your own pledge form. And again, there's a template on the operationpollination.net website. You would design your own pledge, or not design, but you would put your name on that pledge form. And then you would go around to them and ask, is there something that you can do? And it would be, I think, very appropriate for you to go with in hand some actual things that they could do and know some plants that they could plant. And that is certainly very location specific to El Paso. So you'd have to do a little research on the web, but it's there. It's definitely there.
Okay. And
I think-
you said El Paso's in the Monarch
Yeah. If you
pathway.
go, let me, I'll try to put up a map for you. So there's a map. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay.
you see how, I mean, it doesn't say El Paso specifically, but you can see where El Paso is.
Yeah.
You see that they're on the western side of the eastern population's migration to Mexico. The monarchs go either down to Mexico, that's the eastern population east of the Rocky Mountains, and then the ones from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific go to the Pacific coast. So my guess is that El Paso probably has a little bit of mix of both. But the western population, by the way, is in dire straits, almost blinked out. The eastern population is still, there's millions of butterflies, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is concerned that the migration is in danger. Not that monarchs are in danger in general, but the migration, because since the 1990s, the monarch has declined by 90%. That's just one pollinator, by the way. Operation Pollination is not just about the monarchs, but because the monarch is the iconic species that we all know about and love so dearly, that's why I mentioned it. But, as I mentioned, bees, butterflies, moths, beetles, ants, they're all pollinators.
We had,
Yeah.
I have a question,
Yes.
really a comment. Well, first a comment. I think this would be ideal for interact clubs in our area.
Yeah.
Just nice to get that started with them. But my question is, can you keep talking about decrease and all that. Can you, on a broad level, describe how you measure that? And more importantly, how you would measure that it's improving?
Okay. So people actually go out in the field and survey. Do you remember when you were a kid and you drove around I'll give you a quick survey tool. Do you remember when you were a kid and you drove around at night and you came back and your windshield was spattered with insects?
Mhm.
I don't know about where in El Paso, but I do know that where I'm from right now, my windshield is not as dirty as it used to be 50 years ago. That I do know. And by the way, this simple survey tool of an automobile driving around at night, it is demonstrated in many parts of the world that is the case. But actually, scientists will go out into the field and count. Now, with the monarch butterfly, since we've talked about monarchs, the way they count the monarch is by the area on the mountainsides that they cover in Mexico during the winter time. So they actually measure the monarch by hectares. And for those who speak in the language of hectares, it's 2.5 acres per hectare. So the number of hectares that the monarchs occupy on those mountaintops in Mexico has been on a steady decline since the 90s. As I mentioned, a 90% decline. So that's how they measure the monarchs, just for that one species. I hope that answers your question, Pearl.
Thank you.
Sure. By the way, I'm not a biologist and I don't claim to be an expert in anything, just so you know. But I am capable of reading, and so I've read a little bit, and this is how I know my things.
Chris, I have a question real quick.
Yes.
If they were, let's say that the pollinators, it got worse, what is a fallback on that? What would we do if it got into dire straits? I mean,
Your guess is as good as mine. I would imagine that we would have to hand pollinate things. Now, not all plants or not all agricultural crops require pollination by insects. Some are pollinated by wind, like corn, pollinated by wind. But there are a good majority of our foods that we eat that are pollinated by insects or other little things. So for in that case, I think we would have to resort to trying to pollinate by hand. And how the heck would we do that?
yeah. And then it'd be horribly expensive. There would be
Oh.
the price of our food.
I can't imagine. And plants are adapted to be pollinated by very specific insects. And so we would have to mimic what that insect does to even access the places on the plant that require the pollination. It's a mystery to me, Susanna. It's a great question. I do know this, we'd be in dire straits.
Yeah.
So everything we do now is, again, for our inheritors. We want our children and their children and their children to have a healthy world. And so this is why I'm encouraging Rotary groups to get involved in this project, because you have the will and you have the means to do something positive to help the environment.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Chris, I have a question. What,
Yes.
I assume there are some natural predators of these pollinators that you've named here.
Oh,
Are
yes.
there any programs in place to control the population of those natural predators to limit their negative impact on the pollinators?
The predators impact, Bob, is natural. So my guess is that in some cases there may be efforts to limit predators, but not in a big way for pollinators. By the way, bats are a predator pollinators, insectivorous bats. But fruit bats, they pollinate. It would be kind of very hard, I think, to be so specific to get rid of the predators, because there's so many different ones that are predators of pollinators. That's another thing, by the way. Pollinators are the food source for these other animals. So think about that. But the predator impact is not as significant as the impact is from loss of habitat or pesticide use or parasites. So those are the three big things. That's a good question though, Bob.
Well, I don't know if you were aware that we had a great presentation on bats last week at our club. And so
Yes,
it's kind of fresh in our minds. So.
Yes. That's wonderful. I'm sorry I missed it.
It's a good one.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Well,
Chris, I was going to say thank you. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna try to beat you to it. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for that. And I think it would be a great service project. We're always trying to figure out, we've got 7 Rotary Clubs here in El Paso. And if we could do a
Wow.
statewide, we're pretty big here. So,
Wow.
so if we could find something that could link us together, that would be ideal.
Oh, Susanna, that's music to my ears.
Yes.
This is a great project to link you guys together.
Yeah.
If you
Well-
want me to speak to your other clubs, just let them know, okay?
Okay, I sure will.
I'd be happy to speak to them.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. You've been a great group.
Thank
A
you.
nice size group. Thank you for having me.
Thank you and good luck. I hope you're able to talk to many. You said that you were going to be talking to some more groups, some more Rotary groups.
Yes.
That's so good
Yeah.
luck on that. And I hope you pick up a lot of other people.
Thank you. I am still refining the program. I've learned something new every time I speak to a group, including your club, how I can make it better. The other district governors that I work with, Judy and Marlene are their names. They and I have a quest to speak to every single club in the Chicago area. And so there are 130 clubs there. And so we are on a quest to get their 2 districts down there to embrace this project as their own. And I think they're going to do it. So you're not alone if you get involved in this project.
Well, that's a
Chris,
good goal.
This is Jerry. I've got to tell you, you've got a district governor in the group here.
Really? Where?
I'm blowing the whistle on Linda Woodward,
Oh, Linda, nice to meet you. You're the district governor?
former.
Former, okay. Yeah, well, PDG,
Mhm.
I say it pretty damn good. I know it's past district governor, but so Linda, yeah, you're perfect. Thank you, Jerry, for blowing yeah, I like that. This is a project, Linda, that would be great for your district even. You're on mute.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Linda.
Get it, Linda.
Still on mute.
There
There you
we
go.
go. Yeah, there's some really good things that it can do, and especially since I live in the country.
Uh-huh.
I am quite familiar with the butterflies and
Yes.
how they interact and love. In fact, I wrote down the milkweed because I want to get some and start planting it whenever it's planting time.
Great, great.
yeah.
Do me a favor, make sure it's the native milkweed to El Paso area.
Okay.
Okay, it can't be some of the tropical milkweeds that are sold on the market. That screws things up.
Oh,
So
well,
go to the, go to-
I don't want to screw anything up.
no, right.
I've been known to do that.
Haven't we all? Well, listen, thank you, everybody. Susanna, thank you so much. Jesse, thank you for providing the backup. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And you have a good week, Chris.
You guys too. And if you need me, contact me, Susanna, okay? You know how to reach me.
I do. I do.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, we have a cooking class coming up on the 23rd. And